Hi everyone. Today we're going to do a lecture on non-directive and directive speech. So let's get into it. First of all, we've got two examples here of speech. One is directive and one is non-directive. Let's have a read. You really should look into becoming a baseballer professionally. Here are some brochures. I want you to read through them and tell me which are your top 3 teams. Then we will start training with those teams in mind. The second example. You've always really enjoyed playing baseball, haven't you? How do you feel about aiming for the professional leagues? Would that interest you? One of these is directive, one of these is more non-directive. Which do you think is which? The first example is an example of a more directive style of speech because the advisor is controlling the conversation. They're telling the advisee what they should do. They're giving the advisee a task to do without asking if the advisee would like to do the task. And they're already planning for the future without confirming, without checking with the advisee that it is what they want. In the second example, the advisee is given control of the conversation. So it is an example of a non-directive speech. Here, the advisee has the chance to agree or disagree or change the topic of the conversation completely, to take the conversation in a completely new path, which is more personally relevant to their worries and concerns in this moment. And directive and non-directive speech works on a bit of a continuum. They are connected. Some are slightly more directive or slightly less directive. As you can see here, making a suggestion is somewhere in the middle. Same with giving feedback and asking questions to raise awareness. Directive styles are sometimes called a push style because you're pushing them towards a particular solution, often one that you're providing them. A non-directive style is a pull style because you're pulling from them their own opinions and their own solutions. So, time for a stop and do activity. Which do you think is easier, takes less time, provides autonomy, has a greater effect, and is more powerful? D is for direct and D is for non-direct. Please stop the video, answer the questions. Okay, let's have a look at the answers. So directive styles of speech are definitely easier and take less time because again, you are in control of the conversation. You can push the advisee into whichever direction you think is the best one. However, a non-directive style does provide more autonomy because the advisee can choose which direction they want to go in, which one is of most importance to them. And this has a greater effect because the more they do it, the more self-awareness they gain. And the more self-awareness they gain, the more they're capable of making their own choices without you, because you're not always going to be there. And so once they're able to make their own choices, they will gain more confidence and it becomes a cycle. And that is very powerful. So for the rest of the lecture, we're going to go through 5 of the basic advising strategies. Now, these are on the document in the Google Classrooms. We're going to look at summarizing, positive feedback, meta viewing and linking, although really we're just going to look at linking, metaphor and challenging. And you're going to see 2 examples. One will be non-directive, and those non-directive examples might turn into more directive examples. And we will look at the 2 and we will compare the 2. But I would also like you to think about whether or not the directive example is okay or is it problematic? And the word problematic means could it create a potential possible problem? So let's have a look. Number one is summarizing. So we've got the dialogue, although it's really just the advisee speaking. So we've got the example, one here and example two here. One is directive, one is non-directive. I would like you to please stop the video, read the text, and think about which one is directive. And then write down some notes about why you think it is directive. Okay, stop the video, try the task. Okay, let's look at the answer. Number two is directive. Number two doesn't really use words that gives the advisee a chance to disagree. As you can see here, they're saying you're planning to change jobs even though you're worried about losing your salary. They don't use words like, is that right? To confirm, is that actually how they're feeling? They use words over here in the non-directive example of, but you're not sure you're okay. So we're inviting some doubt. Maybe they can turn around and be like, actually, no, I'm sure I'm not okay. Or they can say, yeah, I don't know, I've got this confused feeling about it. So it gives them an opportunity to agree or to disagree or to change the summary. Number two is also directive because it tells the advisee what the problem is. Honestly, salary loss is a big problem, isn't it? It's really focusing on that salary loss. Whereas in real life, that salary loss might not be the real reason the advisee is feeling confused. So there we have it. Our next example, before we continue, write down some notes. Do you think this directive example is okay or is it problematic, and why? Now we will go to the next one. So the next example is of positive feedback. Again, stop the video, read the text, write down which is directive and why. Okay, let's look at the answers. Again, number two is the directive example. In number two, the advisor instructs the individual how to overcome their problems next time. Next time you experience the loss of a job, you should take action in the same way you did this time. However, the next problem, the next time this person loses the job, their circumstances, the situation they are in, might be very different. What worked for them this time might not work for them next time. So, is this okay, or is it potentially problematic? Let's have a look at number three. And we are looking at linking rather than meta viewing. So again, stop the video, read the text, answer the questions. Let's look at the answers. This time, number one is directive. This one is a little harder because number one does look like a suggestion. You know, why don't you practice speaking in front of the mirror? It's very low direction, but it is, depending on the tone, more like someone instructing or telling them what to do. So you can say it like, well, you know, why don't you try practicing in front of the mirror? You did it before. How do you feel about that? Or you can say, well, why don't you practice in front of the mirror? It worked for you before. So depending on tone, it could be seen as more directive or less directive. Again, okay or problematic. Number four, metaphor. Read the text, answer the questions. We'll look at the answer in just a moment. Okay, let's look at the answer. Again, number one is directive. In this example, number one gives the metaphor to the advisee. And this might be okay because the advisee might agree with this metaphor. They might go, yeah, it really is like climbing through a jungle. However, it is still better if the metaphor comes from the individual, because then it's really, truly 100% is more personally relevant. It's easier for them to remember, and it's easier for them to connect their feelings to the metaphor. So, is it okay or is it problematic? Last one, challenging. Again, read the text, complete the question, and we'll look at the answer in just a moment. Okay, let's look at the answer. Again, number 1 is the directive example. In this example, the advisor tells the advisee what is and isn't possible. You can see it here. I don't think that is possible. Isn't it better to aim for 30 days instead? This does give the advisee some choice, but just before it, we've already ruled out what the advisee wants to try and do. Whereas in number 2, they offer a question which might help the advisee to realize maybe not the idiocy, but the difficulty of training for a marathon in just 10 days. And so it's better for these realizations to come from the advisee, especially when challenging their views and their desires, because they still want to see you as an ally. They want to see you as someone who supports their ideas, who accepts their ideas. Sometimes not all ideas are great ideas. So we need to ask in a way that is still allowing them to come to the decision themselves. So, okay or problematic? Right, so that's the end of our lecture. Now what I'd like you to do is use what you've learned in a task. So on the Google Classroom, I've added this task as a discussion board activity. What I'd like you to do is choose two of the basic advising strategies discussed today, summarizing, summarizing, metaphor, linking, challenging, and there was one more. What was the other one? Positive feedback. There we go. So choose 2 of those, please. And then choose one of these 2 communication styles, either style 1 or style 4. Think about what this communicator needs, what this advisee might need from you. And on the discussion board, explain why either a direct or an indirect or even a combination of the 2 could be used for this communicator, for this advisee, and why it would be best. If you have any questions, as always, please contact me or contact your classmates. We are all here to support and to help you. That is all from me, and I will see you during class. See you guys. Bye.